Welcome to Career Ambitions, the podcast for corporate professionals who are ready to stop waiting and take control of their careers. If you're tired of sending applications into the void, wondering why you're not getting interviews, and watching opportunities go to people who are no more qualified than you, you're in the right place, my friends. I'm Joanne Sparrow, former HR director turned career coach, and I've spent more than 2 decades sitting on the other side of the hiring table. That means I know exactly what hiring managers think and what they say behind closed doors. Join me on this episode of Career Ambitions, where I'm pulling back the curtains on the hiring process and unapologetically exposing the truths job seekers are never told to give you the strategy and confidence to move your career forward and land your dream job or promotion. Have you ever finished a long workday, looked back at everything you did, and still thought to yourself, I didn't do enough? You answered the emails, you led the meeting, you solved the problem, you supported the team, maybe even moved the project forward or delivered something really important. And yet at the end of the day, your brain says, that wasn't enough. I should have done more. I could have done more. That is what I want to talk about today. Productivity dysmorphia, the inability to see our own successes. And before we go any further, I want to be clear. I'm approaching this from a non-clinical perspective. I'm not diagnosing anyone. I'm speaking as a career coach, a former HR leader, and someone who has spent more than 2 decades watching high-achieving professionals quietly exhaust themselves while believing they were falling behind. Because some of the most capable people I've worked with have one thing in common. They are doing far better than they think they are, but they just can't see it. Welcome back to Career Ambitions, a podcast for corporate professionals who want to build meaningful, fulfilling, and successful careers without losing themselves in the process. I'm your host, Joanne Sparrow, career coach and former HR director. And today's episode is for the person who is constantly achieving, constantly showing up and delivering, but never feels caught up. It is for the job seeker who says, I applied to 5 jobs this week, but I should have done more. And it is for the employee who gets great feedback, but immediately focuses on the one thing they could have done better. Productivity dysmorphia is when you cannot accurately see or feel the value of what you've accomplished. You may be doing a lot, making progress, achieving real results. But emotionally, it just doesn't register. You finish something and instead of feeling proud, you feel behind. You complete one task and your brain immediately shows you the 10 tasks that are still waiting. Or perhaps you hit a goal and then within minutes, you're now moving that goalpost. You tell yourself, well, that was expected. That was not a big deal. Anyone could have done that and I should already be further along. This is not about laziness. It is often the opposite. And it tends to show up in people who are ambitious, conscientious, responsible, and deeply committed to doing great work. But somewhere along the way, your internal measurement system has become distorted, and you no longer measure progress by impact. You're measuring it by exhaustion, and you no longer measure success by results. You measure it by how much more you think you could have done. In corporate environments, productivity dysmorphia can be very easy to miss because it is often rewarded. Think about it. The person who keeps pushing through becomes the team player. And the person who never seems to need support becomes the person everyone depends on. From the outside, this looks like success. But from the inside, it can feel like pressure, guilt, and constant self-monitoring. Am I falling behind? Am I still relevant? Am I proving myself? And for many corporate professionals, especially in competitive fields like HR, PR, communications, and leadership, there is always more that could be done. Another email, another stakeholder, crisis, campaign, metric, networking conversation, job application, and follow-up. So if your definition of success is everything is done, you will almost never feel successful because in modern work, everything is rarely done. High achievers often have a complicated relationship with success. They're driven, they care, they have very high standards, And they want to be seen as valuable. They want to be excellent. But the same traits that help them to succeed can also make it hard for them to feel successful, because high achievers often normalize their own effort. They're thinking, of course I handled that. Of course I stayed late. And of course I figured it out. But here's what I want you to hear. Just because something comes naturally to you does not mean it has no value. Just because you're good at something does not mean it was easy. And just because people expect excellence from you does not mean your excellence should go unrecognized, especially by you. This is one of the biggest patterns I see in my coaching. People discount the very things that make them exceptional. They'll say things like, I'm just organized, I'm just good with people, I just know how to calm things down, I just know how to manage executives, and I just get things done. And I always pause them there, because the word just is often where people are hiding their genius. Now let's talk about job search, because productivity dysmorphia can be brutal in a job search. And when you're employed, you usually have external signs of productivity: meetings, deliverables, deadlines, feedback, paychecks, performance reviews. But in a job search, especially in a tough market, you can put in a tremendous amount of effort and still not get immediate visible results. The silence can make even the most accomplished professionals question themselves. And productivity dysmorphia starts whispering, you didn't do enough. You're not trying hard enough. You should be applying to more jobs. You should be further ahead. Other people are landing roles. What's wrong with you? But a job search is not a simple input-output equation. Effort matters, absolutely, but timing, market conditions, hiring budgets, internal candidates, referrals, restructuring, recruiter capacity, and decision-making delays all play a role. So when you measure your success only by interviews or offers, you erase all of that strategic work that's creating momentum for you. Rather than saying to yourself, did I get the job today? The better question is, did I take the right actions today that increase my chances of getting seen, remembered, referred, or invited into a conversation? That mind shift matters. Progress is still progress, even before outcomes arrive. Productivity dysmorphia is often connected to perfectionism, the kind of perfectionism that makes every effort feel incomplete. Perfectionism does not always look like polished excellence. It sometimes looks like procrastination, and sometimes it looks like over-preparing. Sometimes it looks like achieving something meaningful and immediately asking yourself, but what's next? And that is exhausting, because perfectionism convinces you that peace is waiting on the other side of flawless performance. But flawless performance is not a real destination. It is a moving target. One of the clearest signs of productivity dysmorphia is the moving goalpost. You tell yourself, when I finish this project, I will feel better. And then the project ends, and you immediately start to think about the next one. You'll tell yourself, when I get the promotion, I'll finally feel successful. And then you get the promotion, and you feel pressure to prove you deserved it. The goalpost keeps moving. And when the goalpost keeps moving, success never has a chance to land. This is why some people can have impressive careers on paper and still feel like they are behind. When I worked in HR leadership, I saw this pattern all the time. Some of the most talented employees were not the loudest in the room. They were not always the ones constantly promoting themselves. Often, they were people quietly carrying a huge amount of responsibility. And then when performance review season came around, they really struggled to talk about their impact. They would say, I don't know what to write. I was just doing my job. And then I would ask them a few questions. Well, what changed because of your work? What problem did you solve? What did you improve? Who relied on you? And then suddenly the accomplishments are everywhere. That is why I tell my clients all the time, your career story is not built from your job description. It is built from your impact. And if you cannot communicate it, decision makers may not recognize it either. Let's name one of the most common thought spirals. I'm behind. Many professionals are measuring themselves against invisible benchmarks they never consciously choose. By 30, I should have this title. By 35, I should be earning this salary. By 40, I should be at this level. But careers are not built on perfect timelines. They're built through seasons of growth, rebuilding, visibility, uncertainty, and transition. You may not be behind. You may be in the middle. And the middle often feels messy because evidence has not fully revealed itself yet. We also have to talk about comparison, because it is very hard to feel successful when you're constantly consuming other people's highlight reels. Someone announces a promotion or a new role, or someone's landed their dream job, and suddenly your brain says, what am I doing with my life? But you are not seeing the full story. You are not seeing the rejection, the waiting, the failed interviews, the quiet doubts. You're comparing your internal experience to someone else's external announcement. And that comparison is not fair. It is not useful. You can celebrate other people without using their success as evidence against yourself. Someone else's progress does not make your progress less real. Let's talk about the signs you may be experiencing productivity dysmorphia. And again, this is not a medical diagnosis. These are reflection points from a career coaching perspective. You may be experiencing productivity dysmorphia if you finished a day focused only on what you did not get done. You struggle to name what went well. You minimize compliments or positive feedback. You assume your strengths are not special because they come naturally to you, and you feel like you're failing even when there's evidence that you are progressing. And one of the biggest signs, you're tired, but you still believe you have not earned rest. If you're in a job search right now and you feel like you're not doing enough, I want you to take a breath. This market is challenging. Hiring processes have become way more complex. There are more applicants, more delays, more ghosting, and uncertainty. So please don't measure your worth by silence of an inbox. Do not assume no response means no value. Do not confuse a slow market with personal failure. Your job is not to apply frantically until you burn out. Your job is to build a smart, visible, relationship-driven search strategy that helps the right people understand your value. And that means clarity, your positioning, networking, targeting, and not measuring your entire future by what happened this week. And if you are the quiet performer listening to this, I want to speak directly to you. You may be more successful than you're allowing yourself to see. You may be more respected than you realize. You may be more capable than your inner critic admits. And you may have solved problems that never made it into your resume, because confidence is not pretending you're perfect. Confidence is having a truthful relationship with your own evidence. Before we close today, I want to give you a simple coaching exercise I do with my clients. Take out a notebook or your notes app or a blank document and write these 5 prompts down. What did I accomplish this week that I'm not giving myself credit for? What felt hard, but I did it anyway? What did I improve, solve, clarify, or move forward? What strength did I use that I tend to minimize? And what would I say to a client, colleague, or friend who had done everything I did this week? That 5th question is super important because many of us are far more generous with other people than we are with ourselves. If your friend told you they were tired after carrying everything you carried this week, you would probably not say, well, you probably should have done more. You would likely have said, look at what you handled. And maybe it's time to offer yourself the same truth. Productivity dysmorphia tells you that no matter what you do, it's not enough. Career confidence tells you, I can pursue growth without erasing my progress. You can be ambitious and still acknowledge your wins. You can want more and still respect what you have already built. And you can be in progress and still be very proud. You can have goals without using them as weapons against yourself. And you can build a successful career without constantly proving your worth through exhaustion. So this week, I want you to practice one thing. Let something count. Let a small win count. Let progress count. Let your effort count. And your courage. Because success is not only something you chase, it is something you have to learn to recognize. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who looks successful on the outside, but may be quietly questioning whether they are doing enough. And if you're ready to stop second guessing your value and start building a clearer, more confident career strategy, this is exactly the work I do with my clients, because your career story should not be built from self-doubt. It should be built from evidence. See you next time on Career Ambitions. Thank you so much for listening to Career Ambitions. If this episode gave you a new perspective, a practical takeaway, or even that little spark of confidence you needed, I would love for you to follow the show and leave a review. To celebrate the launch of Career Ambitions, I am running a special giveaway until May 30th, 2026. You could win 3 months of free coaching with yours truly, plus a pair of Apple earbuds. To enter, leave a review where you're listening today. Each review counts as an entry into a giveaway. The draw will be held on May 30th, and I cannot wait to celebrate one lucky listener with 3 months of career coaching to help them move forward with more clarity and confidence. Your next career move deserves a strategy. And if you're looking for more support, connect with me at Career Coach Joe on Instagram or joannesparrow.com to take your next step. See you in the next episode of Career Ambitions.